This is the Mud Peddlers, a podcast where two nerdy ceramic artists share the behind the scenes of their worlds of clay. We are your hosts, Lindsey M Dillon.
And I am Donte of Earth Nation.
Hello, welcome to the Mud Peddlers. Today, we have two very, very special guests. Can you please introduce yourselves? They're from AMACO.
Yeah, hey, I'm Cory Brown.
And I'm Stephen Creech.
And you guys work at AMACO, yes?
Yeah, AMACO
right.
Brent.
What do you guys do at AMACO? Tell me your positions.
I'm an advanced glaze designer is my title.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the director of Brent Products.
And how did you both get into AMACO? Like, were you just like developing glazes and AMACO was like, damn, you're good. Please come here.
No, not at all.
Tell me the lore on that.
Yeah, so for me, I was in graduate school at Alfred University, and I'm just a really... I was in graduate school for ceramic art, but I'm a very technically inclined person. I love glazes, and I love glaze calc and ceramic technology. And so I spent a lot of time in ceramic engineering while I was there, just asking a lot of questions, and so I had a good rapport with ceramic engineering. And during that time while I was in school, AMACO approached Alfred Engineering to work on a problem that they had. And so when they did that, Alfred Engineering, the head, Bill Carty at the time, asked me if I wanted to work on the project.
Nice.
And so I spent graduate school there is 2 years. My summer between my 2 years, I worked for AMACO through Alfred University, worked on the problem, we ended up solving it, and then went through my second year of graduate school, and then after that summer, AMACO called me and asked me if I wanted a job. It was initially described as, would you like to develop fun and interesting glazes?
Yeah.
And that was basically it.
Yeah.
For mid-range.
Fair. Okay, yeah.
And so that was the first work I did with AMACO in 2016.
Okay.
So however long that's been, like 9 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've been full-time for maybe 7 of those.
So personal question, is there a station at AMACO, you are there and you are in the back experimenting, or is it more of a, you have your own station, you make glazes, you experiment, you feed them information, and you're essentially on retainer to some extent?
Nothing like any of that. I've been working remotely the entire time.
Okay.
I live in New York. I worked from Alfred. I stayed in Alfred for like 8 years, and now I live in New York City.
Got it.
And I have my own space that AMACO pays for, and I have my own lab and my own kilns.
Very nice.
And I do research and development all day, and I do workshops for AMACO.
Tight. Cool.
Yeah.
And you?
You almost zoned out.
Yeah, no. I was actually thinking too to add in that like you come to AMACO like once a month.
Oh yeah.
And so there is this like component of it of coming in and calibrating the system to check the glazes.
There is, yeah. So once a month I come to AMACO for about 4 days.
Do you have to fly? You have to fly.
I fly.
Oh.
I used to drive from Alfred, but now that I'm in the city, it's easier to fly.
Right, yeah. There's a company that I'm familiar with that is in New York, and every now and then they're like, no, I don't want to fly. I'm very comfortable flying.
Oh, I fly a lot.
So you drove here?
I took the train here.
Oh, you took the train?
I took the train here.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know
And-
that there was a train that came here.
Yeah,
That's so
well,
cool.
it's an Amtrak train.
Okay, yeah.
But it's like a 14-hour trip. You get your own. You ever play like Halo?
Yeah.
You know the pods they drop in?
Yeah.
They pretty much put me in a roomette, which is their version of a pod.
Yeah.
And it feels very sci-fi-ish, but there's not enough room to sleep.
Yeah.
You don't find that out, though, until you get there. So I might fly. Might have to fly next time.
Yeah.
So what's your position at the company, and how'd you get started?
Yeah, so I've had a number of positions over the years. I've been in AMACO going on 13 years this October. And so my position is director of Brent Product. It's a new role for me. It just started a couple of months ago. Prior to that, I was the director of product development and marketing and kind of ran social media, the marketing stuff, and helped Cory and Mike Carson, who's a ceramic engineer, deal with formulation and marketing of the new glazes. And we were kind of a brain trust together. And the new role is to try to build more product releases and new things for the Brent side. So I'm focusing on that. My story about how I ended up at AMACO is a little bit weird and wonky.
Tell us.
So I give you the long and short of it.
How weird?
It's pretty weird.
Llamas?
So, yeah, no, llamas are not involved, but bicycles are.
Okay.
And so I had been teaching in Korea and moved back to the U.S. I'm originally from Kentucky, And shout out Kentucky Mud Works. I went in to catch up with everybody when I got back from Korea, and Link, the owner of Kentucky Mud Works, said you should work at AMACO, because I told her I was moving to Indianapolis. My wife had gotten a job there, and so I said, Link, that would be amazing. How do I do that? And she said, well, I'll email some people. And I got on the internet and messaged everybody I knew and said, does anybody know anybody that works at AMACO? And a few other people said, yeah, I know somebody. And so they started pinging for me. And then I started emailing directly, and I got no word. I then bought a plane ticket and flew to Bellingham, Washington, got on a bicycle and started riding across the country.
How far?
I are literally across the country.
All of the way?
All of the way. But whenever I got to, it was around Iowa, we got a text, or not a text, it was actually an email at the time. But it said, hey, we've heard of you and we would really like to talk to you. Could you be here on Thursday? And it's like a week later. And so we start riding 200 miles a day, and we get all the way there, and I go in for the interview. But they
had to give it to you.
Well, it's funny. They were like, well, you can relax. You don't have a job. We just wanted to meet you because we'd heard a lot about you. And it was like this artificial water cooler talk because everybody was pinging them about me.
Yeah.
They thought I was probably more important than I am. And so, it kind of worked to my advantage. But after a 3.5 hour interview, they told me to come in on Monday, and I started part-time, and I was making objects for the catalog and worked my way up to the director of marketing. So it was a fun endeavor.
Were you into biking before you were like...
Yes, I've always kind of been into riding bicycles, and coming back from teaching in Asia, it felt like an opportunity to do this. I didn't have boots, and I've always wanted to ride across the country, and so it was the chance to do it the one time.
I thought you Forrest Gumped it. Like, he's not good at running, but he's like, I'm just going to start running.
I'm just going to start going.
And just start, got good as he went.
We met people. There was these two girls that had never ridden bikes before, and they just decided to do it. And they were out
just
there.
Stuff?
Oh, it was wild.
I have a job, but...
Yeah, they didn't know how to change the tire on their bicycle, and they had a flat tire, and they had to get a truck to take them back. They had to go backwards to a place to get the tire changed, and it was really interesting. So it's like anything in life. Sometimes you feel like you need to know more before you try, but honestly, it's better just to start trying and learn as you go.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
There's so many things in clay and glaze that I've been I did that wrong. And then you learn all the ways in which you do things wrong, and sooner or later you do one thing, you're like, okay, that's the way to do it.
And I feel like...
Or at least that's the way that works.
I feel like at a certain point, you learn all the rules, and then you try to figure out how to break them again.
100%.
You know?
1,000%. That's, a billion percent.
It's so weird. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so do you also have a place you work, much like Cory, or you're at AMACO, the station?
So I was at AMACO. And then starting a few years back, I became the director of special projects. And so I have an office in downtown Indy. And that's where I predominantly work out of, there or my house. So I'm working remote as well.
Yeah, I think most companies see that it makes sense to work remote just from an infrastructure point of view. Why would I pay for the building and for you to come here and for you to move? And when I could just have you be in the place in which you're comfortable, you'll probably get much more efficiency out of somebody that way.
Honestly, there are fewer distractions when we work remotely.
Absolutely.
If I'm in the lab at AMACO, it's a whirlwind of just people coming in with the new thing, and then it just takes over, and suddenly we're all working on that. And when I'm in my own, I go to meetings also, but otherwise I'm able to just kind of focus on my projects, and I can at least have half a day to 3/4 of my day to myself to just focus.
And you know where everything is. It's like being in a kitchen. I was a chef for quite some time, and it's easier to work in my own kitchen because I could damn near text, turn around, and I know the whisk is there because I put
muscle
the whisk.
Memory.
Yeah, I put the whisk there, and so I'm a little bit more efficient when I grab a tool I need to do a job, and so I totally understand.
Yeah.
So you work on the production side, you said, or you?
No, it's more mechanical devices.
Okay, so do you mix clay, produce clay, and
help with the engineering side of that?
AMACO does, and AMACO, that would kind of still fall within the formulated side. So when you look at AMACO, we typically split it down formulated, so something that is mixed together from ingredients, and then mechanical, which is something that is like a pottery wheel, an extruder, a kiln, that type of device. And so now I'm more on the mechanical side, whereas Cory would be in the formulated realm.
And you're both crafters as well, I assume.
Yes,
Of course.
yeah, we're both artists.
Okay, what's it called? A question that not everybody likes. Controversial question. Wedge or no wedge? And why?
You mean, do we wedge our clay before we use it?
Yes?
100,000% yes.
Thank you.
Are you kidding me?
Sometimes I'm lazy.
I mean, I'm bipartisan.
Sometimes I'm lazy, you know? I like wheel wedge, you know what I mean? But
I just want to say that the people that work at AMACO wedge, I have this back and forth with certain people where they're like, you don't have to wedge at the company with the machinery. I've already like de-aired it and like pugged it for you and like squeezed it together as much as possible. I'm like, yeah, but that's not the entire story. That's like one of the 5 variables that really help the homogenization of your clay. And so I teach wedging and coning up and down, because the amount of people that wedge, put it on the wheel and assume that your clay is going to be even just because you wedged it. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
You're both shaking your heads no, right?
Yeah,
and so I tell my students, like, it needs to be as homogeneous as possible, at least,
yeah.
right? So that you can have a better working experience, at least.
It just feels so much better to me.
So much better.
I mean, if you haven't wedged and you're throwing and it's suddenly soft, hard, even just a minor amount.
You feel it.
You feel it,
Yeah.
and it reflects in the finished work. I throw in a more precise way, too, and I prefer it to be really homogeneous.
Yeah.
Yeah, your clay, you're really controlled in like your utilitarian objects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Like a lot of the clays that are produced in industry are thixotropic, and so like unless you're wedging and getting it moving, you
Yeah.
can get those like hard lumps in there.
That's a thing, too. Lots of people are like, my clay is so hard. Just wedge it for a second. It's like ketchup. Once it moves, it'll move more.
Yeah.
To a point, of course. But
And then to your point too, even though it's de-aired, it's pugged, there's still memory in that clay
Absolutely.
of the auger, and there's stuff that, you know,
I
if
was
you
so
were just
worried.
to cut the piece, you're probably not going to have a good time.
I was so worried you guys would be like, fuck no.
Yeah.
Why would we wedge our clay? But I teach wedging, and then I'm like, also cone up and down. I do both.
Me too.
Because it's just honestly a better experience. The clay is more even. Not even getting into platelets. Everything is a little more aligned. Memory of the clay, just like you said. And like, yeah, I guess technically you don't have to wedge if you took it to a very razor down point of view. I have a couple friends who are like, no, you don't have to wedge. And then I'll see them go to the wheel and they'll cone up and down. And I'm like, you're wedging on the wheel. You're just not calling it wedging. You are wheel wedging though. You can't say you don't wedge at this point, right? So how is it working for the mechanical side? What does your daily life entail? If there's things you can't say through.
Yeah, you know, it's such a new role, and it has never existed at AMACO, and I find myself giving the analogy, Cory and I talk a lot about this, sometimes it feels like you're in a dark room, and you're trying to find the wall, and then you're trying to find the light switch so you can illuminate the room.
Fair, yeah.
And that's really what this is it's trying to be the voice of the customer, it's trying to make sure that what we're doing has a forward-facing, as a maker, there's things that we want to have and use and experience, and we're not doing that, so why are we not doing that?
Right.
So I would say that there's 2 folds to the daily right now. We're trying to get ramped up and trying to get moving on a lot of new products for Brent. Cross our fingers, that's going to come down the pipe soon. And then in addition to that, trying to make sure that everything we do is an intentionally important thing to the customer.
Yeah.
We're trying to make sure that the entire process of opening a wheel, experiencing a wheel, or an extruder, or any Brent product, we want you to enjoy that. You know, unboxing is a thing, right? And AMACO being such an old company, we kind of are set in our ways, but we don't have to be. We can figure out ways to improve everything we do.
Right. There's definitely the cultural side of the pottery where it's like very narrow, and it's like, no, you have to do things this way. And then there's also the side, it's like, if your clay body has an absorption rate of 1%, it's not going to kill you. It's not vitrified, per definition. No one cares. Doctors are not running in the street going, the potters are killing people. You know what I mean? Mm. And so breaking out of those bombs. As for you, Cory, what's your daily life like? Firstly, I should ask you, are you a molar amount man?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Christ. Sorry.
Of course. No.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I spend my life speaking the language of glaze calc.
Of course.
But I also go to a lot of meetings. I mean, I'm part of a team.
Yeah.
There's a big lab team. There's a lot of us on the NPD group.
How many?
New product development.
I assume there was at least like 5 like glaze nerds in the back of AMACO studios at all times.
I mean, I'm kind of the main glaze developer, but there's like, I have my boss who almost came to this, Mike Carson, and I heavily rely on him to talk about, complicated glaze questions. And I have someone who works with me. His name is Michael Sprague. He's pushing a lot of stuff through at AMACO. So like when I'm making glazes, I'm sending them over to him and he's validating them on the floor at AMACO. But how many people are in NPD? Like 6 or 7?
I guess it depends on if you look at all of MPD, because then you have it's multi-departmental.
Yeah.
But to your lab, it's
just
probably
my lab.
6.
Yeah. But then we have a QC lab and an AD lab.
Yeah.
And
there's multiple points for the ceramic labs,
And they're synergistic. They feed off each other to an
Yeah,
extent.
and that whole area is probably 20 people.
Yeah, it really is.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's nice. Okay.
But my day-to-day is, I usually get there in the morning, I open the kiln, I look at the results, first things first.
And you probably document them and all that.
I document everything and then usually try to follow up on things. Sometimes it's like, oh, that's a dead end that way, and this one's got promise, and so I'll make new formulas based on what I see results-wise. And sometimes I'm sending those formulas directly to AMACO.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm like, got to work on that more.
Absolutely. There's oh, sorry, you were...
I was going to say, I think one thing that's probably fun to share is just like the rigor and the gauntlet. Like, I feel bad for Cory. I mean, Cory is like, he gets to open the kiln. He sees really fun things. We're feeding off each other a lot. And it's like you got these babies, these things you've got, and then you release them out into the world, and they go through the rigor and gauntlet of a multiple phase checks and gates system at AMACO.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the thing that seems so perfect, it has to be robust enough for everybody else.
Yeah, it has to be user-friendly.
Yeah, that's
to a degree.
That's this one thing that's kind of different. Like, you can go on Glazy and grab a recipe and you can do it, but once you scale that up, we talk about this, going from like a bucket to like,
30
100
gallons,
100 buckets,
60
60 gallons, all that stuff.
It's a different ballgame, yeah.
These little inconsistencies magnify,
Yes.
and then he has to figure all that out. And so it's this wild repetition, right?
And everyone's very emotional about it. There's a lot of employees at AMACO, even outside of our new product development area, and everyone has a lot of feelings about glazes. And so I give them over, and then everyone has an opinion about it, and I kind of have to pass all of these gates, like he's saying.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the products have to be relatively user-friendly, and I think that's, at least from my point of view, from every clay, not just AMACO, that's kind of the job, right? It's to like take something that is relatively difficult to do in the clay and glaze world, and then whittle it down and razor it down to its finest parts to be like, yeah, like you've seen my videos, I pour your glazes on my pots, and they still come out.
I cringe.
Well, they come out really good, and I've made 3 or 4 videos of people, because people will constantly be like, you should brush it on. And I'll go, okay, if you want me to. So I've started making a brushing next to the, and hand over hand, they come out better. And I know it's just because I'm putting more layers of glaze on.
Yeah, thicker glaze is usually better.
Exactly. I'm just putting more glaze on, but people don't see that connection. So when people are like, aren't you wasting more glaze? I'm not wasting, I'm spending. If I'm getting better color from putting the glaze on the way I'm doing it, then I'm getting better color. What's the issue, right? Yeah. And so I've started to make a brushing variant and a pouring variant, right? I noticed, and this is something that I want to ask both of you, a new glaze line, specifically you, Cory, comes out like every 6 months. I won't ask how you're doing it, but I would say what's the rep behind that? Like every 6 months there's like PCF and Cosmos and this and that, and I'm sure you have a new one coming out, right?
Always, yeah.
Right.
Well, part of it, I'll have to tell you, is that during COVID, we didn't release anything for about 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, and it was just, supply chain was crazy, the
sure was.
The pandemic was crazy, we completely shut down for a little bit, and then just getting caught up with back orders was crazy, and so we didn't want to release anything. And so part of it was that we had built up research that we wanted to now put up.
100%.
And part of it was that we discontinued some products at that time as well that were low sellers, and so we're just trying to kind of build up again as well.
Yeah.
But also we're just kind of stepping on the gas, trying to do the best we can to be innovative and put new work out there. And the owners have put a lot of pressure on us to do that, and we're happy to do it. I mean, it's fun to release new products, so
Right,
we're all on board with it.
What from my point of view, what most glaze developers in general do, right, is that they'll create a base glaze and then they'll add colorants to that base glaze. And within that one family of base glaze, they're relatively workable, right? So like you take a base glaze, 1%, you do a line test. That line test is probably going to work unless the oxides don't work with like other things.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to work with the same base with those different colorants within a certain space.
Yeah.
Right?
Some of ours are like that, and
Okay.
many of them aren't.
I noticed that the Potter's Choice line glazes don't seem to be like that.
They're not like that at all. The
I
Potter's Choice
assumed.
glazes are individuals.
You can look at them and you're like, this is not the same base as this.
No way.
There are a few in there. That whole line was trying to mimic reduction looks, but in an electric kiln.
Love it.
That was the concept of it early on. It's morphed and grown. Cory's added a lot to it, and there's exciting glazes that have gone in there.
Right.
But now I think the goal is to kind of break out, if there's something that's exciting that has life, to break it out into a new family, so it's less confusing.
Like
Right.
the PCS, for example, they're
Love
all
it.
based off of honey flux, and that's the base essentially.
I
And
assumed
they do have to be tweaked a little bit. You know what I mean? It's not like we just add stain. It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
But they're inspired by or very close to the chemistry anyway.
Right.
But like things like the Cosmos, those are individuals as well.
Yes.
But like the new Kiln Ice, it's kind of a base with different colorants added to it.
That makes sense because when I use your guys' glazes and you've given me a lot to use, I noticed that a lot of them play well together and some of them don't. But the ones that play well together are the ones that seem to have the same like opacity and clarity and translucentness, if there is any, as the same ones in the same family. So if you have C-1, C-2, C-3, my brain's like, and you don't have to confirm this, my
Yeah.
brain's like, these all kind of seem like the same base. So in my head, I'm like, these will probably work together pretty damn well, right? They might not make a combo per se, but they all work together pretty well.
I'd say I agree with you in the way where, like you could interchange one. If you know a combo works well over C1,
Mhm.
it probably works well over C20 as well.
Exactly.
But I think that combos that have completely different chemistry are the ones that are the good combos.
Yeah, those are,
Where there's a reaction and interaction between them.
It took me
We all want to be surprised by the result. Like,
Yeah.
it's the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or whatever.
Of course.
You want that scenario.
Yes, of course. Okay, now I'm going to ask you, because we've gone for 22 minutes, that's fine. 20-minute mark is where I start asking, like, weird questions. If
Okay.
you can't answer these, just say so. We will cut it out.
Okay.
Okay? So I noticed within some of the glaze lines, there's the little stickers that say, like, not dinnerware, not food safe. The thing that I try and get across, and I was talking to Mako about this as well, is that not food safe and dinnerware safe are two different things.
Yeah.
My first question is, do you define not foodware safe as what's in the glaze? And do you define not dinnerware safe by the strength of the glaze? Like, how do you define those two things personally?
Yeah. Food safety is like illegal. Does it have lead or cadmium in it?
From the
Essentially, right?
Yeah, from the
a legal
government standpoint, there's times where we'll say something isn't food safe because we're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Like if there's a bunch of manganese or something, it will say
Right.
not food safe.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes if they don't survive the dinnerware testing, we might say it's questionable.
Yeah. But legally, we could just say if it doesn't have lead or cadmium,
Yeah.
which we're not putting that in anything anyway.
No,
Yeah.
I think the lead scare really got to, like, what I call the Facebook people.
Yeah.
They are very scared of lead.
It should be.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we also don't. I pass on lead every time. Anytime someone's like, I have these materials in my garage and I need to get rid of them, and I see lead, I'm like,
Yeah.
There's no reason I need to ever test that.
Yeah.
well, I think it was an incredible flux. I think it made nice pottery, but
It
who
made
wants to be
everything.
poisoned?
It made
Yeah.
everything work. It
Yeah.
was magic.
I think
really
when it was fired,
It was in our paint, and our candy, and our it was everything.
but in a well-balanced glaze, I think it was a very good flux.
Mm-hmm.
That melted really well and had low expansion.
And
But-
is the term dinnerware safe mainly because the glaze is not strong, or is it an overage of metal in the glaze, so you're worried about leaching to a degree? Like, what is the dinnerware safe aspect of that same piece of puzzle?
It's more about the glaze not being strong, like it didn't pass an acid-base test.
Mhm.
Like it might etch or something like that with
which
the
could
acid
introduce
test.
growth of bacteria.
Of course.
Yeah.
We have some labs that we send things to get that ran, like the bacteria growth potential.
Of course.
But then there are elements of like base versus acid, and like figuring out ways that it can etch, things like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, people like to take that, and if they're gonna make production wear with it, they really should always have it tested on their own stuff, because like we had it tested on our clay and our kilns and our firing cycles. But as you know, like if you underfired it or overfired it or had some funky stuff going on, it's not necessarily dinnerware or food safe anymore. And if you're gonna do it in production, and you shouldn't rely on our seal.
Right.
That should be for an individual's comfort level. But if you're going to make mass production, you should do it yourself.
Yeah. The last person I had interviewed, I had said it's kind of like expiration dates on food, especially for like dirty little kids like me. We're like, well, that does say expired.
Is it?
It's been like 3 days. If I cook it well enough, I could probably still eat that and not get sick. And so you're right, it definitely is a guideline, right?
I think it's one thing that I'd like to comment on it is like it's also somewhat societal, because like there's other countries that eat on unglazed plates. And in China, there's teapots that have never been washed, and it's like that infuses the body with it.
Right.
Like, kimchi and ongis, and they're porous. And so there's this level of it where we're kind of somewhat afraid, and I think it's rightfully so, but it's also the tolerance of the society and what's really going on. And to Cory's point, it's like these things are moving targets. I think everybody assumes that our industry and materials are stable, but something we were talking about, and I was sharing with other people, depending on when they actually produce the frit that you use, it varies in chemistry. Yeah. If the one before it is more soluble, then that run will be soluble. So you think the frit you're buying every time is the same, and it's not.
No, absolutely.
Even the stains are different.
Everything's different.
Every single turn that's
and
different.
And so that's why it's so important to do those tests if you are doing commercial dinnerware with our stuff, because your clay could change, the glaze could shift, and it could be like there's a Venn diagram and it really works just in the middle. And unfortunately, these two things have now drifted apart a little bit.
Right.
So yeah, that's the way to do it.
One of the things that I've learned over the past maybe 4 years, I live really, really close to a mineral company. And this mineral company, they're more like Infrastructure of America mineral company, and they happen to like pottery. They're not a mineral company made just for potters, if that makes sense, right? So like the lithium that they use there that I buy, lithium carbonate, they also use in other things, yes? So what I've learned a lot from just the company's point of view is testing their stuff. A good example of this, I will not say what company. I bought a large bag of yellow iron oxide. I like yellow iron oxide. It's easier to count in the chemistry. I don't have to look at 2 different forms of iron, 2 or 3 different forms of iron with black iron oxide. And it's easier for me, but I kept trying to get this deep iron saturated khaki type glaze down. And after a while, I started looking at my iron purity. And every time I called, it's high purity, man. What's high purity to you? What's your definition of high purity?
Yeah.
95%? 80%?
99?
Right, 99%. Like, what's high purity to you? They didn't have a number for me. So I learned basically how to test that by burning off all the organics and then reweighing it on a gram scale, stuff like that. And it turns out my iron is 89% pure. 88 to 89.
Yeah.
But in that day, I learned not to trust labels.
And that's the thing about calculating glazes, too. Like, they're theoretical when you're calculating those molds.
Absolutely,
And we're using dirt out of the ground.
Yes.
And so it's not as accurate. It's like a lot of materials are just like you're talking about.
Right.
Or like rutile, for example. It's like, by definition, 15% other stuff. It's like titanium and iron plus whatever other crap is in there. And that changes from lot to lot.
Well, that's like the floating aspect of everyone has like a floating glaze. But really, they're like, oh, you got to use rutile. I'm like, well, titanium works too. Especially if you already have a high iron saturated clay body. But anyway, we're getting off track. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is one of my more in-depth questions. Is there, and I suppose this is more for you, Cory, is there a flux ratio where you bail out, where you're like, I can't go any deeper? For example, if you had like a 1090, you're like, no, we're not using that?
I know when I first started learning about glazes, I thought, glazes are supposed to be 0.7, 0.3 in order for them to be good.
Yeah, 0.3.
Yeah. And now I've completely thrown that out the window. I think that was for making robust glazes for sanitary wear from Stoll in 1912.
Talk to me about that.
And I don't think that that's a requirement at all. Mm-hmm. And I think fluxes can be on either end 100%.
Got it.
Because if it's an interesting glaze that is reliable and making something that people want to buy, we'll make it and sell it.
So that's from a marketing point of view.
But you had mentioned like robust, usable glazes. Is there?
But what is usable? I mean, are you making something beautiful, or are you making, dinnerware that needs to be in a dishwasher 100 times a day?
Of course.
Because if that's what you need, then I would say do what Stoll said. Do 0.7, 0.3. Maybe you can go, 0.85, 0.15.
Right.
But it should be right around there, and you should follow Stoll. He nailed it.
Because I have glazes that are like, I wouldn't say trash, but they're like 1882 or some junk like that, right? And so I often wonder, because I'm not on the company side whatsoever, I often wonder, is there a point where like if I reach 1090, would I have to put a non-dinnerware safe sticker on it because the durability is now?
I think you just have to test it.
Yeah.
Okay,
You really would. You just need to do
Get a
whatever
fork and
glazes.
just go crazy on it.
No, there's ANSI like dinnerware testing.
Yeah.
There's official scratch mark testing. There's official acid-base testing.
Right.
And you can look all that up and just follow what they're telling you, and it'll tell you officially if it's dinnerware safe or not.
It'll tell me the guidelines.
Yes.
Right. That makes much more sense. Okay.
I think it's also kind of wild because depending on where you go in it, like eutectic comes into play. There's
For sure.
absorption of other things. Like things kick different ways, and things that you might not consider to be a flux, they can start to behave differently. Glass formers change things. It's like it's hard to really nail down your question.
Yeah.
And I do think
I get
we
it.
should go on record and say the dogmatic Stoll people like that. I feel like it's such a farce because this is art. We're making art.
Exactly.
And for people when they're like, it's this, it's Stoll, and they're coming from this like, it's got to be this way or no way.
Yes.
That's not how art works.
I agree. There's nuance.
Yeah. Well, and like what artists do is we find beauty in flaws,
Mhm.
and we find unique opportunities in flaws. And for this other, I don't know, I get annoyed, and it's something that like.
You're good. Talk
Yeah,
your shit, honestly.
I just
Go ahead.
I
This is a safe space.
I just feel like sometimes there's a lot of dogmatic opinions and people feel like they're limited and scared and they need to follow rules. But to be honest, it's like when you think about all the materials and all the combinations, it's like the amount of stars in the galaxy. And there's so much undiscovered stuff. And if you just follow like people that are online making videos to tell you how to make glaze and you only listen to them, you're not going to see the rest of the world. You've got blinders on. I think you shouldn't follow that stuff. You should go out on your own and discover the world.
You become an echo chamber
That's beautiful,
until
Stephen.
Yeah.
3 or 4 people are like, no, it's only 0307. And I've definitely taken, I won't say it, all the thousands of dollars of classes, chemistry classes for this kind of stuff. And I've always wondered, they're very, again, dogmatic with it at times. And I often go, but yeah, what's the punishment mechanic? Am I making a glaze that's 1090, as I keep using as an example? Is eating off of that worse than someone who's like drinking beer every day and like taking so much Vicodin every day? You know what I mean? Like, how bad is it in the grand scheme of? And when I do my tests, I'm like, I don't think it's actually that.
Lead's still used in Europe.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like,
I promise you can make a robust glaze with alumina, silica, and calcium only.
Yeah.
yeah.
Only. No sodium at all.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay, all right. So one of my final questions, because I think your boss probably misses you at some point, or if you guys are enjoying the chilling, we could pretend to make it longer. Up to you.
we're good with,
I'm good for whatever. I'm just hanging out.
Okay, we'll give it 10 more minutes, and I'll double check with you again.
Okay.
I just want you to stay in your own comfort level, really. So a lot of us know that, and it's very obvious, that we have to change minerals sometimes, especially for our clays and our glazes. I'm not going to ask you about specific minerals. I would love to know. But how do you as a company, especially as a glaze maker, handle those mineral changes? Do you just find another mineral and try really hard to... Because I think ancient copper was like one of the ones. And I do often wonder if that was because of a mineral change. And if you can't say no.
We run up against raw materials vanishing occasionally.
Right.
It happens, especially a couple years ago in this COVID time.
Right.
There was a supply chain thing, and some stuff is just like it just disappeared forever.
Yeah.
And we have it's not my job to do that, and we have a whole lab that is kind of working on this kind of thing.
Got it.
And they, if we run out of a material, they're sourcing everything that we can find that's similar, and they're running thousands of tests to try to match it exactly. And we do everything we can. We use a spectrophotometer to match color. We use flow blocks to match flow. We fire it low, we fire it high, we fire it right on different clay bodies to try to match it exactly as close as we can.
Mm-hmm.
But, every glaze company has to do this. There's no way around it. It's either discontinue stuff every year because if we can't get that anymore, or swap out replacement minerals and materials.
I assume it's the clay bodies as well, where like there's like when Custer Feldspar went away, people freaked out, and
Exactly.
I'm not a clay maker at all. So all the clay makers were like, "Our Custer Feldspar," and I was like, "What? Just use a different, it's like potash feldspar, call it a day." But evidently there's very little.
Yeah, Custer Feldspar ran out, EPK ran out, and now EPK's back. There's been tons of stuff. We can't tell you too many more than we're just like nationally famous, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, I think that you realize that we are insignificant in the grand scale of all this stuff. Like, I remember, you could probably elaborate on this, but you went to Spruce Valley, and you were going
Spruce Pine, yeah.
Spruce Pine, yeah, and you were going to go see the silica, right?
Yeah. What's their name? Where Minspar is made. Have you used Minspar before?
Yeah. Love Minspar.
Yeah, so Minspar is a feldspar, and it's made in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. That's where it's mined at. It's been there since the 70s or earlier. And silica... sorry, what's the name of that company?
Silico, I can't remember.
No. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the
They
silica
don't
company.
need to know. You're good.
Okay. But anyway, they've been making Minspar since the 70s, and that was their main thing. And then by the time that cell phones started becoming smartphones, silica, highly refined, highly pure silica, is a main ingredient that is used to make smartphones and high-end technology.
Mm-hmm.
And they found out that this silica, Quartz Corp, that's the name of it, Quartz Corp.
That's a good name, actually.
It is. Yeah, they nailed it with that name. Quartz Corp found out that the silica that when they make Minspar, it's a rock and it's got silica in with the feldspar,
right?
And so they were floating off the silica and selling off the silica, and it was the kind of the byproduct.
Got it.
And then 15 years ago, they found out that the silica in there was some of the highest purity silica in the world, the planet. And so now Minspar is the byproduct. Minspar is cheap garbage, and they barely even care about it.
Just because the silica is so valuable.
Because now the silica is the main thing, and that's what they really care about. I mean, it's like $5-7 a pound for the silica, whereas Minspar is like, what, 20 cents a pound?
Yeah,
something like that?
And it's like guarded now. Like,
it's
you can't
guarded.
go in. It's a national security site.
Yeah, I went on a tour a couple years ago, and the Minspar area where they continue to refine it is still from the 70s. It looks like it's from the 70s. No upgrades. It is a dirty, filthy facility.
I love Minspar, though.
Me too. We love it.
Mix.
We love it too. It's just like, you can't invest in a brand new facility if it's not making a lot of money.
Correct, yeah.
But the Quartz Corp is the overall company, but the silica area, it's like brand new. It's got robots. It's got digital everything, computers everywhere. It's like fancy.
That's probably why nobody can see it now. It's like guarded secrets.
And this is probably a good example that if there's one day where that Minspar mine equipment breaks, I'm not saying this is going to happen in Quartz Corp, if you're listening, and everybody don't get freaked out. But it's an example that could happen to EPK. Their equipment broke down, and sometimes it's hard to get the equipment, right? And so this company could say, well, we're not going to even deal with that anymore. We're doing silica only.
Unfortunately, it's all business. And one day the numbers might not work out. Yeah. And it's just like, we're not making enough on Minspar to invest in a new facility. And so now we're just, who knows if that's probably not going to happen. But
no, I mean, I get the mentality, because sometimes things are too much effort to like continue to do.
Yeah.
So like even if I do something at my house, if it takes more than an hour, I'm like, well, I'm going to have to plan out more than an hour to do this one thing. And sometimes I'm like, I have 30 minutes. It's not worth my time right now. It's not worth it. I have to.
And it's like, sometimes it's to the customer's advantage too. It's not like we're trying to trick anybody. We're trying to make it work for everybody.
You guys are doing a great job.
Like NEFSI, for example, we're just getting hit with these new 25% tariffs, for example, right? Mm-hmm. All NEFSI is coming from Canada, or all the stuff we're getting.
You guys are getting hit with the. That was my next question.
That's what that's not my role to deal with purchasing, but that's what we understand is that's coming soon. Is the Canadian one? I don't think it's actually hit yet, or I don't know if we bought a truckload of NEFSI.
I think it happens in like 2 months,
something like that.
You'll still have your load, and then you have to buy a new load.
Yeah, or who knows? Maybe they'll cancel it by then. But anyway, it's like, what is NEFSI? Well, it's sodium and silicon alumina, and so we could potentially, if it meant cost savings for our customer and for us and for the whole system, we could potentially reformulate things to use Minspar
Love
instead of Nefsci.
Yeah.
And that would be to everyone's advantage, but it would mean changing the glaze.
Well, those with aspects of tariffs, I'm also slightly worried about the production line, because it's like, if you buy a Ford truck, some of the parts are like made over here, and then they're sent to Mexico to get polished, sent to Canada to do something else, and then sent to America. And so you have stacking tariffs. And I think the one thing I'm afraid of is I don't know the mineral production line well enough to go, stacking tariffs might be a thing, not just straight out tariffs. So the 25% is a great example. I'm very worried about, like, does the 25% go to a place that also does 10%, and then it gets to America, and that's 35 total?
Could be.
And it's
That's
up in the
a
air.
big question. I don't know that I even have the answer.
I don't know either. But I assume if there are really bad things like that, it'll end up streamlining, where they're like, well, that's dumb, so we're going to send it direct now.
Yeah.
I assume there'll be a shake-up for a minute, and then it'll be like, okay, well, I mean, for all we know, there's going to be a lot more companies that start mining and making frit in the U.S.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. 1 second. Let me check the time. Fantastic.
And I think it's probably worth going on record that we're talking about all this and we're talking about the pains of this. And this is why AMACO hires all these people. When you buy a pint of glaze and you question that price because you're saying I can make it cheaper or something like that, you're actually paying an insurance policy for us to continue to keep it consistent along the way. I mean, every jar that you buy, you're putting a roof over like 150 people's heads.
You're paying the artist,
And we're like, there's teams of people that around the clock are trying to make sure that your ancient copper doesn't go away. And like that was one where like we felt so bad to let that go away.
Yeah.
And then when we figured out, they came up with a really creative way to bring it back. And it's so creative. We can't share, but it's amazing. And that's how it came back for us. So
I still hoard bottles. So at the time in which ancient copper went out, I was trying to develop my own version of it. And it was really difficult because it's a deep iron saturated khaki, or at least the family that I understand that it's in, khaki glaze, that is at cone 6. And it took me like 8 months to figure it out. Because the amount of metal flux had to be like just right. 2 grams more of like EPK in my glaze made a huge difference, made it a little more stable. And it was such a pain in the ass. And the whole time I was like, how did AMACO even figure this out? I would have given up. But like I almost gave up like 3 or 4 times until I figured out what a family of glaze is. And then I was like, oh, it was actually Tim C. Tim C looked at it and went, oh, it's a khaki glaze. And I said, what's a khaki glaze? Because I'm telling you, for like 4 months, I was like, maybe it's tin chrome red. Wasn't. Maybe it's zinc and iron. It wasn't. Zinc and iron don't like each other for some reason at high amounts. I don't know why. I just know they don't. Zinc and cobalt like to make babies all day, but that's their business. But like it took me so many test trials of viscosity and specific gravity to figure out like what it works at, how many applications of what, at what temperature, things of that nature. So I know if it's a pain in the ass for me, it has to be a labor of love for you guys on the side. It has to be.
Yeah.
You're just lucky you have multiple glaze nerds, you know what I mean, to synergize that information.
they're gluttons for punishment.
Dude, the khaki glazes suck. I'll tell a lot of my glaze buddies, like, oh yeah, I'm trying to make another version. And they're like, why would you waste another 8 months of your life like that? I don't understand why you do that.
I think it would be wild to like just when they show people the like truckloads of tiles that it takes to make glazes and maintain glazes. Like
Easily 50
Just-
test styles for me.
yeah, I mean, like AMACO has at least 8 kilns that fire every day of the year.
Yeah.
And
Big
it's
barrels, too.
And they're big kilns. And just every day it's filled with tiles to maintain production, new glazes, ensure quality. It's wild. So,
And that's not including my kilns in my space, too.
Right. And that's a whole. There's so many variables to making a glaze work the way you want it to versus correctly. I think those are 2 different definitions. That there's a lot more testing that needs to come into play for the artist than just like, it's not how it says on the bottle. That's a very unnuanced way of thinking about it, I think. A lot of my students will be like, it didn't come out the way on the bottle. Look at your clay. It's cone 10 B mix. I'm like, okay, well, it's a cone 5-6 glaze, right? And they applied it weird. They're one of those people like rinse their work before they put it on. I'm like, well, you didn't absorb as much mineral because you waterlogged them with what? There's more variables than just picture look good on bottle must work.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you two would agree with that. Final question before I go. 2 of them, secretly one of them, Lindsey. Is there anything you guys want to spit before I ask you your final question? If there's anything you want to get out there to people, I want you guys to talk about your new glaze line, your snowflake line,
Yeah.
Right? Let's just make that like. So what are you guys working on next for the AMACO company?
Well, we've just dropped the Kiln Ice glazes. It's kind of a traditional snowflake crackle type glaze. It's heavily crazed, with crazing upon crazing upon crazing, where it's got actual three-dimensional depth to the crazing. They're very beautiful. There's a whole variety of different colors to them. They're still very translucent, and so they're just subtly tinted. They look fantastic on the interiors of bowls. They can go on any form, really, but they also kind of look really wonderful on our dark chocolate clay. We've recently released some premium clays, and those ice crackles on the dark clay.
They gave me some. I have a little
very nice
2-pounder of it. Yeah.
This is one of the lighter colors.
but
there's
are
a
some
dark
other
color
ones.
too.
Oh, there's multiples of this.
Yeah. There's white chocolate, milk chocolate, and dark chocolate.
I see. Okay, and
So-
those I assume will be on the website.
Yeah, and I think we're dropping them here
Yeah,
too.
if you come by the booth, if you come over,
I'll snag
we'll
you
give
one.
Some, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the race from here now is to find a dark clay that doesn't bloat, I think is the word.
This is
This
it.
doesn't blow.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, I got so frustrated with clay bodies that do bloat over like cone 5
Yeah.
that I started making my porcelain slip, cone 6, into a slurry, like slip, and then just dumping mason stain in it, maybe half a pound into a 5-pound bucket, and then making my own black clay. Because I got so frustrated going to the store, buying certain clay bodies, I won't say their names, and then coming back and putting, a month of work into a 25-pound bag of clay, putting it in my KMT 27, and then having 80% of them bloat.
Yeah.
And being like, what is this, manganese dioxide to like no extent? Iron? I don't know what this is, but it feels contaminating.
Contaminating.
That's got to be a word for sure.
It
Yeah,
seems
these-
contaminated shish.
These clays are not stained with manganese or iron.
Thank Lord.
Yeah.
Yes, it's. And when you talk to the other companies, like, we have to do a special kiln load. No, I want it to work. I just
Yeah.
want to put it in my up and down and have it work. No holds or anything like that. So Kiln Ice is your newest product.
Kiln Ice's newest product that's available today.
Pog. Good.
And we also are just about to drop the crawls, and they are not available yet. They're coming very soon. They're kind of being batched right now.
Got it.
And
One unique thing about those crawls, if you've used crawl glazes before, it seems like one crawl is all crawl, but these are not your traditional crawl. One thing, if you use like light layers of them, you can get little tiny crawl, and that's not something you really see with the zinc based crawls. So yeah, I think that's kind of exciting. Cory worked on them and pushed them so that they can also do those really big fat globs that's really in vogue right now too.
we've also found that they're really good for layering. AMACO's really big on layering.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of we really want to make sure the majority of our products are able to layer. And the crawls layer really, really well.
Good.
Some crawl glazes are made with like magnesium, and that interacts really poorly with a lot of glazes.
Yeah.
And so these are not made with magnesium, and they're not made with zinc. And so,
That's nice.
yeah, so they don't have those color interactions that cause a lot of issues. And so
Right.
they layer really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's exciting are the sprays. If you have ever tried the velvet sprays, they're back. We figured out some opportunities to improve them. They're just amazing. Like for me, it's my go-to everyday carry. Right? It's my everyday go-to glaze. I treat them like glazes, but being able to grab a can of velvet and literally blast some color on and be in the moment, like responding to the lines and the mark making, not having to slap 3 coats of velvets on, but just kind of free flow, responding to the piece and getting color on there. It's amazing. They work really well over glaze. They'll melt into the glaze, and it's awesome. If you haven't checked them out, go to AMACO's website, go to a local vendor. But the AMACO sprays are the velvet sprays. They're really amazing. Have you tried them?
I haven't tried them.
Yeah.
But I think purely because it's my uncomfortability with spraying stuff,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
like, I'm used to wet suspensions, like water, minerals in water.
I swear if you do it, you're going to be like, this is the funnest thing. It's
now,
fun.
Now that you've said it, I'm going to try it.
Yeah, they're fun. It's oddly
It's
very
not graffiti,
enjoyable.
it's art, Mom.
Yeah.
Like,
There's lots of ways to use it. You can do ombre, like gradients, and then let that melt into a glaze that's flowing, like supernova from the cosmos or honey flux, as Cory mentioned earlier. Put them over that, and it's killer results.
I must say before I go on to the next
topic that I love your PCF line. Hands down, favorite line. Works on
Folks,
everything.
they just knuckled.
I mean, there's definitely like the Potter's Choice line glaze. Just my glaze maker brain gets like firebrick red, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it seems really standard. So my brain goes, it's probably a base with like mason stain in it because it doesn't move that much. And every single Potter's Choice line is a different experience, right? But like the PCF line works on everything, including red clay.
It looks even better on dark clay.
It looks so,
but
and
it looks great on white clay.
Everyone's like, my French, jerking off white clay. But try a PCF on some brown clay.
Hot take.
I know. Controversial. Everyone's just like, I love porcelain and white clay. That's cool. But like even a lot of the chip walls, you know, the little textiles, a lot of them are either slip cast, and they're usually white, or they're just like a white little thing that somebody formed. And so we never really get to see a brown variant of it, which is the reason I cover that on the channel with my glaze reviews. And there's so many people that are like, I want to see it on brown clay. And the PCF line is one of the few lines that I will buy a bag of red or iron saturated clay and then buy a couple bottles of like PCF just to use it on that red clay. And the amount of people that are like, wow, that's such color. I'm like, yes, try using red clay once in your life.
So have you tried the new PCFs that came out this last year?
I have them. So there's 3 tests that are in my studio right now.
Okay.
But I couldn't fire the kiln before I left to come to NCECA. So I have
Excuses.
2. I know, I'm so sorry. So I have 2 of your DL lines, 2 of your DL glazes in my studio right now that are ready to fire. And then I have 2 of the, I think it's like something rain and then something purple.
Okay.
That are being
Purple
tested
rain?
as well. No, there's one that's like blue something, and then there's a purple one and a pink one. But I forget what they're called.
Okay.
You guys probably know off the top of your heads, of course.
Oddly, I haven't been involved in the glaze naming in a minute. So
Okay, well, if
I'm
you
gonna
don't know.
but I think Cory would be the man. So Cory, you're on the spot.
Yeah.
Phone a friend.
Surf, blue surf? What's it?
Yeah, there's Ocean Drift.
Ocean Drift, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and
There-
then
there's
there's okay, so the old ones are Midnight Run, Honeydew, Cirrus Flow,
Honeydew slaps.
Flux Blossom.
Yes.
So the new ones are Aurora Breeze.
I haven't done that one.
That one's like one of my favorite. Ocean Drift, that's the blue one with specs.
I did that one. That
It's like
one's the one I've done.
Yeah, that's honestly one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Mystic Tide, Rose Mist, and then there's the Sunbeam and Sun Shower.
I think I've done. So what happened is, AMACO, you guys sent me a box of glazes, but I was still going through your DO line at the time, and so I thought to myself, I'm just going to do like 10 episodes at once, because it takes a very long time to fill a 1027, right? And it's my only kiln other than my tester kiln, which I don't want to use it for glaze reviews. It's not great heat work from my point of view. So what I do is I batch like 3 months of pots, and then it takes me a month to do all the tests and glazes inside of my personal kiln. And so I just have like 4 of your glazes in the kiln right now ready to be fired.
Cool.
Right? But the PCF glazes, I just want to tell you, they slap.
Awesome. Thank you.
They slap hard. And I think one of the main reasons I like them is because they work so complementary with any brown clay, even like black clays, that it's very easy to teach my students. Here are the benefits of getting brown or iron saturated clay bodies, instead of just going, oh, but it's messy. You know, everyone says that. And then I go, it's not messy. You can just see the mess more.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
For sure. That's
Right?
a good point.
Yeah.
It's so messy. It's not messy. You see the mess more. You're just as messy of a thrower with white clay as you are with brown clay. I promise you.
Yeah.
Right. My final question is one that I will have to ask because my clay sister wants me to ask all the time. If you could do anything with unlimited money, you had like Batman money, right?
Oh, that's this guy.
It
He
doesn't have
needs
to
these questions.
It doesn't have to be clay. It does not have to be clay.
Oh.
Anything. Like
I'm
if you were
out.
like, I'd open a snow resort. What would you do if you had unlimited money and unlimited resources? And you weren't like a power hungry. You're just like some dude in the woods, you know.
Jeez.
Damn, he's thinking right now.
Stephen comes to me with answers for this kind of question like weekly.
Well, I was trying to think. I was like, what's pretty wild? Like, I mean, I kind of feel like I would do what I'm doing, but I would probably, like, if money was no object, I think I would probably release what I'm doing publicly, like almost like just research. You know how like a research institute will do a bunch of tests and then they publish a paper and that paper gets done. Like there's some weird kilns. I really want to build like a gyroscope kiln. Like, you know, those things that you would get strapped into and you could spin around when you're a kid?
Tell me that, because I don't know what.
Okay, so imagine it's a ring within a ring within a ring, and
Okay.
each one of those rings can spin 360 independent,
Okay.
but they all spin on different axes.
Got it.
So then imagine that you put a pot in the middle of that and you suspend it. And I'm mainly looking for things that are like, they're mainly glaze or very close to glaze. So there's a lot of pyroplasticity, maybe they're glaze based. Get them to temperature and spin that. And what happens when glaze starts pulling massive G's? Like, what happens to a pot that would deform normally, but when it gets to that deforming state, you put 3 or 4 G's on it? What does clay do? Like, I want to see that. I want to do really weird stuff in regards to like, I had this dream one time of trying to build a pottery wheel that was like one of those kids running merry-go-rounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I want like you to spin and the clay to stay stationary.
And you just want to.
Yeah, I want to go around 360. You would like vomit, obviously.
I mean,
but I want to try to throw a pot.
The weak ones would vomit.
While the clay is stationary. Like if I had infinite funds, and if anybody's out there listening and you want to fund me, let's do this.
You want to make a gyroscopic? You would have to get 2 prongs. Like if you're making a cup would be here. You'd have to get 2
You
prongs.
would suspend it, yes.
And like to hold it in place
in
at
the
least.
middle, yeah.
And then it would have to spin and somehow stay stable.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be wild, though?
I would like that.
Yeah, it'd be crazy. See,
That's-
these are things that I like call Cory. I'm like, what if? And he's like, not again.
No, I always entertain it.
This nerd. No, that's a great answer. I think, but I do understand that I'm biased because I'm like, I want to know that too.
Yeah, right?
But I think anybody else is like doing other stuff would be like, why?
Dude, like, what would it be like to be in a zero gravity simulator throwing pots? You know, like that would be wild. Like to just get into low Earth orbit, so there's like no gravity, and you just start throwing pots.
How close do I have to get to the sun to fire my pots?
I know. Could you shoot them out of your kiln and they orbit and come back like totally glazed
like a
and
tempered,
everything?
like a tempered string around a cup, and you throw it out into space. Right, and it's just close enough to like melt, do the chemical reaction.
Exactly.
And then you swing it back around.
It totally would be radioactive on its way
It would
back.
probably, space. Yeah.
A lot of gamma rays.
No, yeah, but then it'd be ultra rare.
Yeah.
Maybe it would glow.
Who knows, man?
What about you, Cory?
I think the thing that comes to mind is I would love to have like an incubator where people like us could sit here and talk about these ideas and have time to develop them, but that has like is in a good place, that is interesting to live in, that has a facility, and everything is paid for. We have housing, we have food. We don't need to be worried about our day-to-day, like 40-hour-week jobs.
Yeah.
And we can actually focus on making interesting glazes, making interesting products. Because that's really where the challenge seems to be. It's like there's always ideas, and then there's actually, we're all too strapped to be able to actually get it done. I think just having, yeah, and it'd be great if like every time you meet someone that has that creative mind, be like, you know what, you're hired. You don't actually have to produce anything. We just want you to come and try all the crazy shit that you want to try.
Yeah.
And do it together though, you know?
The hyperbolic time chamber of glazes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about Bell Labs in the 60s.
Exactly.
Like the mouse came out of there, the copier,
Yeah.
Microsoft OS came out of there. Like so many crazy things came out of that because it was just people doing weird stuff, and that would always be a dream, you know.
I would love to. Think you guys ever play what's it called, Portal?
Yeah, I played that.
I would love to have a Portal type Johnson guy. Like, I'm just gonna fund whatever you want to do. You stay in this cubicle. Here's your new ray gun. Good luck. Like, imagine if a ray gun could make glass and you shoot the pot with glaze on it. I would love to do stuff like that as well. These are great answers. I know I'm biased. I'm heavily aware that I'm biased because I enjoy this field. But thank you. I really appreciate you guys talking to me.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, this was fun. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this
thank
is
you.
great.
Yeah, it was great.
Also, you boys look worked, so
Oh yeah.
I wanted to get you away for a bit.
No, we appreciate the break.
You started to have like the dead eyes, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
Gotta give 'em
I
away.
think it's
It was
just
yesterday.
it's weighing on us and everything. Yeah.
It's a lot of weight, and you have more days, huh?
Yeah, if you have any questions, hit us up on social media. Cory and I are really accessible. You know, come check out our work. And also, if you have questions about AMACO, hit us up.
Plug
Absolutely.
yourself. Tell them your Instagrams.
Yeah, I'm at Cory Brown Ceramics on Instagram.
And I'm at Creech of the East.
Yeah, hit us up.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
CREECH of the East.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
of
Okay.
the East.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming
Thank
out.
you.
Yeah, I have a couple more. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Especially you. Thank you, man. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it, actually.
And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Mud Peddlers. We would love to hear from you, so if you want to share your thoughts about the episodes or just see what Donte and I are working on in our studios, come say hi. You can find links to my social media at lindseymdillon.com. That's LINDSEY, M as in monster, DILLON.com.
And you can visit my pottery shop or see what I'm working on at earthnationceramics.com. And you can find me all over social media at Earth Nation Ceramics. It's spelled exactly how you think it's spelled.
And if you want to support the show, hear some bonus episodes, and see some behind the scenes of my work, you can support me and the show at patreon.com/Lindsey M Dillon. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.